This device will help you identify how much radon you have in your house, and that's pretty darn important. Let's check it out. Dave Taylor here, and I want to talk about radon. It is an invisible radioactive gas that's naturally occurring in the ground in the Rocky Mountain region, in the Pacific Northwest. It's actually quite spread out, but it's honestly found throughout much of the world. And it is a signifier of the presence of things like uranium, but it's the radon itself that ends up being a bit of a problem for us health-wise. Turns out that it is the #2 cause of lung cancer in the United States, at least, after, no surprise, actually smoking. But that means that if you have too much radon in your house and you're not aware of it and you spend a lot of time in your TV room in the basement or something, you can be hurting your health. Enter radon detectors. And that's what this is. This is the AEG test Hound-1085 Radon Detector. And this is a really sweet little unit. As you can see, it has a nice bright color display with a couple of buttons on the bottom for control. And there's USB-C in the back for you to charge it because it has a battery and it can run for 45 days of monitoring without you having to touch it or have it powered. And that makes it ideal because you can place this in, for example, your basement, and then just let it sit for a week or two and then go down and look and see what those readings are. Now, I will tell you that placement of a radon detector is also important. The ideal is to have it about 5 feet above the ground and have it at least a foot from any wall and not in direct sunlight and not where air is blowing over it. So if you put this right in front of an air conditioning vent, it's not going to give you accurate readings. What you really want is for it to be measuring what you would be breathing in. And there are 2 different measurements for radon, one of which is called picocuries per liter, and the other is becquerels per cubic meter. They both measure the same thing, which is how many radioactive particles per unit time is the device encountering. The picocuries is probably the more common one, and the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency here in the United States, says that if you're above 4.0, then you have a problem and you need to get a radon mitigation system, which is a pretty straightforward device, but it is something that's going to cost you some hundreds of dollars to get it installed and working properly. But do you need it? Well, that's what this is for. So let's jump in, knowing that 4.0 is our line here. Let me jump in and give you some close-ups so you can see how the unit works and what kind of measurements I'm getting in my basement. Generally speaking, the first thing you're going to have to do on your Hound is push the button, and that gives you readings. As you can see, the latest 6-hour reading for my basement is 2.13 picocuries per liter. That's what that PCIL means. And over 6 days, my average is 1.7. Now I can step through and look at, that's 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, 96 hours, and then this represents a whole lot of reading. And the reason this is so high is because when you first get this from the factory, it actually has some radon remnants because they use it for calibration and testing before they send it. So really what I should have done is I should have done a full clear here, but I didn't. So I'll just focus on my 96-hour reading, and that's 1.5. Radon naturally does fluctuate in levels, and that can be influenced by things like humidity and temperature. And let's see, let's push on this again, and you can see here are some of the configurations and settings. So I can go, and if I go into retest, I can actually zero everything out and then start over. We don't want to do that. So let's actually go down to settings. And so here are the settings. I can change the units. I can change the language. I can make sure it's the correct time. So all of that's really straightforward And ultimately, all I really want to do is I really want to just have it measure my data, but let's just look at that about real quick. So it's interesting. It actually gives you some informative stuff here, but I don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back here, and I'm just going to let it time out, and then it'll go back to that main screen. But as you can see, it's a clean color display. It's pretty darn easy to work with, and it gives you accurate readings. Obviously, any detector like this is only as good as its accuracy and sensor, and this is using a semiconductor sensor with a triple vent design, which is supposed to make it really accurate. So when you first pull this out of the box and give it a full charge, screen's going to be blank. You're going to push the button and nothing's going to happen. Well, I mean, it'll display, but it won't have any numbers. That's because it won't give you a first reading until you're 6 hours in. So it's going to collect data for a while before it starts to show you anything meaningful. I would recommend give it at least 24 hours so that it gets a daytime, nighttime average, and then you can start looking at it. Of course, at that point, as you saw, you can then look at 24, 48, 96 hours. You can even look longer term, and that was where I got into those really higher readings because I didn't do an initial reset on the device. But do a reset when you first pull it out of the box so that it starts clean with no previous data. That's also what they recommend. And so once you get that initial reading after 6 hours, then on the hour, it will update that data. Now, you're not going to see a huge amount of variation. If I'm at 1.7, then I'm going to see 1.6, maybe 1.8. It's going to be pretty constant, but there will be a little dip at some points of the day and a little bit higher at other points. And humidity definitely affects this. If you are in a very humid environment, you'll want to put this in the same room as a dehumidifier. Once you get humidity about 90% or higher, then it's all bets are off. It's not going to be giving you accurate readings, unfortunately. So 45-day monitoring without having to plug it in and charge it. And there's really not a lot else. It does include a USB-C to USB-A charging cable. It's a really nice cable, actually. And it includes a document, a user guide that gives you a lot of information. Even the device itself gives you that little teeny tiny screen explaining a little more about radon. There's an enormous amount of information online. I would recommend you go to epa.gov so that you get the official word on it, not just some gossip or rumor from somebody. Dimensions-wise, it is 3.15 inches across and 1.6 inches high, and it's very light. So it's very easy to just put it somewhere and then just forget about it for a couple of days and then come back and see what your reading is. It is important, especially if you're in a basement, because radon's a heavy gas, so it tends to go down in your house. You're not likely to see it on the top floor, but you are likely to see it in your basement. But if no one's ever in the basement, it doesn't really matter what the radon level is there. So measure it in the lowest room in your house that is actually habitable and people hang out in. So for many people, that might be your main floor. So again, place this about 5 feet above the ground, at least a foot from any walls, outside of direct sunlight and outside of direct air motion from your AC or your heater, and then just let it sit and see what kind of numbers you get. I would say if you're getting above 3, you really want to have a closer look, maybe actually call in a consultant to use really high-end pro gear to validate the numbers. And if you're definitely seeing above 4 or 5, then that is cause for concern, and you're going to want to work with someone to try to lower that value because you don't want this to impact your and your family's health. So that's it. This is easy. This is one of the easiest to read devices that I've seen in the market, and I'm a fan. So one to check out. We do need to talk price. Before we get there, I'm going to invite you to subscribe to my channel. Click or tap on that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon for notifications. And give me a thumbs up if you found this of value. And I certainly hope that you did. Excellent. This is the AEG test Hound-1085 Radon Detector. And it is $99.99, currently discounted down to $89.99 at Amazon.com. If you live in the Rocky Mountains or the Pacific Northwest, for sure, you need a radon sensor so you can figure out what your radon levels are like and whether it's something you need to mitigate or not. And here's the great news, is that we've used one unit in multiple houses. That also could be part of the problem here with my big high reading, and that another, one of the other places I was testing it might have had higher readings than my own basement. So again, best practice here is to do a full system reset before you move it to a new place. But you and your friends and neighbors can all use the same device, because you could just give yourself 2 weeks worth of readings. That's going to give you a good data point, and then reset it, put it in someone else's basement or someone else's main room, let them have it for a couple of weeks. And over time, everyone can confirm that they live in the healthiest possible environment. And if they have any radon issues, they know they need to deal with mitigation. So that's everything I got. I'm going to put this back where I've been testing it. So I'll hope to catch you in my next video.